I'm 102 years old. It took me that long to understand something I could explain to you in 10 minutes. So if you can spare 10 minutes, I might save you 100 years of doing life the wrong way. That feels like a fair deal, doesn't it? Here's what I finally learned. Being practical is not the same as being wise. Being sensible is not the same as being safe. I spent 102 years choosing the reasonable option, the careful one, the approved one. I avoided risks, I avoided mistakes, I avoided messes, and now I'm sitting in a perfectly sensible house, surrounded by sensible furniture, wondering how my life slipped through my fingers so quietly. Because while I was busy doing what made sense, I forgot to actually live. I was raised Swedish Lutheran in Duluth, Minnesota, and if you know anything about Scandinavians, you know we're trained not to make noise. Don't stand out. Don't ask for more than necessary. My mother's favorite sentence was, "That's not practical." A red dress instead of brown? Not practical. Reading late into the night? Not practical. College? Oh, Ruth, that's not practical for a girl. So I stopped wanting things that didn't make sense. I trained myself to choose the sensible option every time. I folded my dreams neatly and tucked them into a drawer because dreams were indulgent and the Johansons didn't indulge. And I was good at it. I was a very good girl for 102 years. What a terrible waste. Here's the first thing I want you to hear clearly. I'm not saying you should be reckless. I'm saying you should at least ask yourself what you want. I never did. I only asked what was sensible, and sensible stole decades from me. So if you're standing at a crossroads right now between the safe option and the one that makes your heart beat a little faster, pause. Don't ask what's practical. Ask what feels alive, because you might choose the safe path, marry it, build a whole life around it, and wake up 50 years later wondering who you could have been. Trust me, you don't want that. Let me tell you what not practical cost me. I never learned to swim. When would I need it? I didn't leave Minnesota until I was 63. Travel was a waste of money. I never wore red. Too noticeable. I never learned an instrument. What was the point? I never said what I truly thought. It wasn't polite. I never asked for what I wanted. That wasn't modest. And I never, not once in 102 years, did something simply because it might be fun. Do you know what that does to a person? I'm 102 years old, and I couldn't tell you what I enjoy. I don't know what makes me happy. I don't even know who I am. I spent my entire life doing what I should and never discovering what I wanted. Everything I can tell you about myself is practical. So please, do something impractical today. I mean it. Buy something unnecessary. Say the thing you're afraid to say. Take the road that doesn't quite make sense. And if someone tells you to be sensible, to be careful, to stop taking risks, look closely at their life. Ask yourself if it's one you'd want to live. The people who taught me to be practical weren't happy. They were just afraid, and they passed that fear on to me. Practicality is often just fear wearing a cardigan. In 1947, I was 23 years old. 2 men asked me to marry them. One was Carl Johansson, a good Swedish boy, owned a hardware store, steady income. My parents adored him. The other was Thomas Brennan, Irish, played piano in a jazz band, made me laugh until my ribs hurt, wanted to move to Chicago and see what life might offer. I married Carl. Not because I loved him more, but because he was sensible, because Thomas was uncertain, because Thomas was a risk, and I didn't take risks. Carl was kind. We had 3 children, a nice house, 51 years together. And I can't remember a single moment of real joy. Not one. Carl died in 1998. And here I am, 102 years old, finally understanding what it cost me to always choose what made sense.
I didn't cry at his funeral. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how anymore. 51 years of doing what made sense had trained the feeling right out of me. Grief requires practice. I had spent a lifetime avoiding anything that couldn't be organized, scheduled, or explained. Tears didn't fit neatly into that kind of life. I heard, years later, that Thomas went to Chicago just like he said he would. I heard he became a music teacher. I heard he was content. That was enough. I never asked for details. I didn't want to open a door I had spent decades keeping locked. And let me be clear, I'm not saying marrying Thomas would have saved me. It might have been a catastrophe. Love doesn't guarantee happiness. But choosing guarantees something else, a story. So drive somewhere without a destination. Put on the color that makes strangers look twice. Say the sentence you keep editing in your head. Waste time. Be inefficient. Be a little ridiculous. Because people who allow themselves to be foolish collect memories. People who are always practical only collect habits. The hardest truth is this: I passed my fear along. I have 3 children, Eric, Anna, Peter. They're all in their 70s now. Good people, responsible people, sensible lives, respectable careers, comfortable homes, suitable partners. I love them. I'm proud of them. And I also damaged them. Eric used to draw for hours as a boy. He wanted to be an artist. I told him that talent doesn't pay the bills. He became an accountant. Anna wanted to move to California. She said she wanted to feel big skies and new air. I told her it was too far, too uncertain. She lives 20 minutes from me. Peter fell in love with a woman who laughed too loud and didn't plan ahead. I said she was unstable. He listened. He married someone appropriate. They divorced years later. I thought I was protecting them. I thought I was being wise. All I really gave them was my fear. And now they're old and careful and unsure of who they might have been, just like me. I shrank them because I never let myself grow. So if you have children, please, when they bring you their impossible ideas, their wild hopes, their poorly thought out plans, don't crush them with reason. Don't hand them caution when they're asking for courage. Let them fail. Let them wander. Let them be loud and uncertain and brave. Because the alternative is they grow up to be polite ghosts sitting in tidy rooms, replaying lives they never lived. This is what 102 years taught me. This is the lesson that took a lifetime to understand. A practical life is not a safe life. It's a smaller one. Every time you ignore what you want in favor of what makes sense, something inside you tightens. And if you keep tightening long enough, you disappear. You don't die. You just fade. You become someone who exists but doesn't experience. Someone who survives without ever really arriving. Someone like me. I followed every rule. I avoided every scandal. I never made a scene. I never embarrassed anyone. And now I am 102 years old, surrounded by order, with nothing but silence and regret. Not regret for mistakes, regret for absence, for the trips never taken, the words never spoken, the risks never tried. Even my Scandinavian restraint is cracking now, just a little, to tell you this. You have a choice every day, the sensible option or the one that might make you feel alive. I chose sensible for 102 years, and with whatever time I have left, I can finally admit it. I chose wrong every single time. So be impractical, be bold on purpose, take the trip, say the truth, wear the red dress, love the person who makes you laugh until it hurts. make messes, make mistakes, make memories. Please don't reach my age and realize you were so busy being careful that you never actually lived. Because that's not responsible. That's not wise. That's just unbearably sad. And if anyone happens to know what became of Thomas Brennan, no, never mind. That curiosity isn't practical either. But after all these years, I still wonder.